Our next question is being posed by Peggy.
Ms. Shafto, Texas faces a budget shortfall that some estimate at $21 billion or even more. Can you specify either cuts or revenue increases that would cover just $1 billion worth of that gap? And I know you favor an income tax, and if that's your answer, how would you build support for that idea? And one other part to the question, how much would you want to spend from the Rainy Day Fund, which is estimated to have $8.2 billion in it next year?
I would certainly, I don't have any idea for the Rainy Day Fund, and I've talked about the tax situation, and it would be difficult to get support for it, no question. Texans don't like the thought of tax, and there's no question about it. But these are people, particularly the top 20% of income earners, they've taken the most from society. Why should they not give back? Why are the poor expected to carry the whole burden? And I think that I can talk to people about that and get some agreement. What I would do right off is to run an audit of state jobs, and I would make sure that every single job that was on the state payroll was a job that needed being done and that was actually being done. It has been tradition for a number of years now to put your pals on the state payroll on a job that nobody checks, you don't check in, you just sort of do it maybe. And we can't afford it. We're over it. That's got to stop, and it has to stop right away.
Thank you. Mr. White?
Well, I'd start, you could get over $1 billion in savings if you had people looking at all these vendor contracts. So much of state government has been outsourced under Rick Perry, and so many of those contracts have later turned out to be incredible boondoggles because they were not awarded based on merit, but because that there were well-placed lobbyists. Look, the three drivers of cost in state government are vendor contracts, personnel costs, and capital expenditures. On personnel costs, you do what we did in the private sector. I did it when I was running businesses. When you see a problem coming down the line, recession coming, then you look at the people who are retiring and you do not, and you see what they were doing, and in most cases you can divide up some of those work among some or all of the remaining employees. That type of hands-on management has not gotten done. And you know there's waste in state government. TxDOT didn't even know, the Texas Department of Transportation did not even know its own budget within $1.1 billion 2 years ago. Anybody who doesn't know their budget within $1.1 billion, that's not a well-run organization. Just think about the smaller costs. And what we were dealing with today. If state government were run for public service and for efficiency by people who use business experience rather than being used as part of a political machine to gather campaign contributions, I'll tell you this, it wouldn't take $300 million a year in fees out of the teachers' retirement system to see the assets go down.
Ms. Glass.
Well, what we can cut is things I've said before. Taxpayer-funded services for non-citizens, that's $45 billion estimated right there. We can cut opt-out of Medicaid, which is another $45 billion plus, another 25% of our budget. We couldn't afford that before Obamacare, but Obamacare has increased the number of people who are entitled to Medicaid, basically opened it up to everybody and upped our liability 75%. We can afford that. Now, that would not be a dollar-for-dollar savings because we would take that money and use it to construct what it is that Texans want to provide by way of health care services for Texans, but it would not be what Washington dictates, and we would get better services at a lower price. We can cut everything. I don't think there's anything that we don't overspend on, including education. If we return to local control of education, people know where there's fat in education. They know they don't need those Taj Mahals and Taj Mahal stadiums, athletic facilities that a small college would envy. People on the scene know how they can cut responsibly in education, but also cut TxDOT. They lose $1 billion, they misplace it like I misplaced my car keys. And I think that we could just get rid of that because I can't see any good coming of it. They want to force these toll roads on us, and of course we know the Trans-Texas corridor is not dead. It still exists in dormant form. Perhaps it'll come back alive to haunt us if Rick Perry gets back in office.
Alberta.
Thank you. Mayor White, This question goes, I guess, to Mayor White first. Today, I spoke with folks from the president from the Children's Hospital Association of Texas, and the organization is very concerned that cuts will be made to the Children's Health Insurance Program, the CHIP program, to balance the budget. That would hurt children and many children's hospitals across the state. Would you maintain or cut the program?
I'd maintain it, and there's a good reason to do that. And that is, this is a program that brings federal dollars in that to help our children be healthy, to deal with our sick children, where if we didn't have this kind of support for the programs, we would be dealing with those in the emergency rooms of various hospitals. And the cost of unreimbursed care, which is borne by providers throughout the state, whether it be physicians or hospitals, those costs of unreimbursed care, if they're not paid for by local property taxes, are built into the insurance premiums of others. That's why I would like to get our share of federal dollars, our hard-earned income tax dollars that we send to Washington and other taxes, back to Texas. Now, I do think there's ways that we can have our health care system be more efficient. When I was mayor of Houston, we expanded the number of community clinics because often you can do a better job of preventative care or catching something early if there's a clinic in the neighborhood, and it's a lot less costly than going to the hospital. I think that's the type of thing that we need to look at.
Ms. Glass, same question.
This gives me an opportunity to elaborate on my previous answer about opting out of Medicaid. But whenever you say we have to do this to get those federal dollars, that's a problem. That's a trap. We need to avoid that because those federal dollars are not free. Yes, you can say they took it from us and returned a small portion of it to us, but that's not even true anymore. Now they're just digital entries on a computer due to the Federal Reserve System. So there's going to come a day, because we all know, I hope, that the federal government is out of money. And there's going to come a day when even what they are sending to us is going to stop. And that's why I say Texas has to get ready to stand strong on our own feet and do what we want by ourselves with our own money, not look to Washington for monies and not accept direction from them in these matters. If we opt out of Medicaid and we pull all of our various parts of the budget that have to do with health care and we decide what it is we want to spend, whether it's for children or veterans, or the elderly, or the disabled, we'll make those decisions. It will not be just what Washington dictates we will do with all the bureaucratic red tape. No, we'll make decisions. There'll be better decisions. There'll be harder decisions. But we will end up, I'm convinced, with better services at lower cost.
Ms. Shafto, same question.
I would like very much to have lower cost insurance, but not at the expense of even one child. And I don't care whether they're citizens or not citizens. A sick child is a sick child and merits care on its own. I would not cut the budgets for health care for children. I would do what Bill White has done in Houston, institute more local clinics so that it isn't the expensive kind of care. And I think that it's, to say that we don't want federal money is to say, that's our money. That's our money. Why would we not want to spend it on our children? Why would we take money from a different pocket to take care of the children unless we had no intention of taking care of the children?
We're going to shift gears right now and move to a lightning round where we're going to ask you a burst of quick questions and hope you'll give us some quick answers. This will start with Alberta putting a question to Ms. Shafto on the hot seat first.
Ms. Shafto, what law in Texas do you most want to repeal?
To repeal death penalty.
Well,
Which law? Ms.
Oh,
Shafto?
which law?
Yes,
Which
which law?
The law allowing people to be executed.
Mayor White?
there's a whole bunch, but most unfunded mandates on our local school districts that deprive them of control. I'll give you an example. I'd like to see a law repealed, the law repealed that didn't give local school districts flexibility in setting school calendars. Why should school calendars be dictated from Austin?
Ms. Glass?
Property tax.